Hey, real quick, before we get into that episode, do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. That way you don't miss out on any marketing nuggets. Enjoy the show.
The biggest thing to marketing and promoting your personal brand is authenticity. We're in a day and age where people can read between the lines. They can see if you're authentic, if you're not. And so if it's not coming across as authentic, then people are going to read through that and it's not going to work.
Hi, I'm Josh Owen. As the owner of a video marketing company in New Orleans, I've been on the quest to learn everything I can about marketing. Everyone has a different style, different strategy, and a different experience. Is there a wrong way to do it? A right way to do it? Let's find out together as we make marketing make sense. Welcome back, everybody, to another fantastic episode of Make Marketing Make Sense. This is a follow-up, hot episode 2 from our previous episode with, once again, Brandon Armant. Back again.
I'm happy to be back, man.
Happy to be back.
This is the first time y'all have done a two-parter, right?
That's the first of its kind. That's right.
Yeah.
You know, what could be better? Who could be our best person to do this with other than you? So fantastic.
Hey, I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you killed it in the last one. I loved it. Lots of great stories, and we want to just keep continuing that story because we talked about, you know, your personal brand and why it's important, but we really didn't tell anyone how to get that going.
We were holding it up.
Oh man, yeah, we were holding that back, and I was itching. I was like, I wanted to ask more questions, but we knew we had to cut it off. So, so we're back to give all the juicy details about building that brand. So for you personally, you know, in your work and what you've seen, you know, what are some of the ways that you feel like that entrepreneurs really need to focus on in order to best articulate their story?
Yeah. So first of all, in building a personal brand, as we said in the previous episode. Your personal brand is your story, and you want to make sure that it's unique, but that it's also authentic and genuine. So one of the things that you want to start doing when building your personal brand is going back and figuring out not who you are internally, but figuring out who you are externally, if that makes sense. Going and figuring out what is it that you amplify to your audience and to people. So you want to look at that. You want to look at your struggles, your challenges. You want to look at your values, your mission. And then also you want to look at your future and where you're going. And all of that shapes your personal brand. It's pretty much just telling a story about who you are and what you believe in.
If try to think of the best way to say this, is there an ingredient list to a personal brand, like a perfect personal brand that you would kind of list out for people? Like if you had a recipe, here's your recipe for success.
Yeah. So first of all, we want to know, you want to start looking at who am I? If you can describe yourself in 3 words, who are you?
Yeah.
Start off with that, and it is tough.
Yeah,
it's tough because sometimes for some people they can't think of 3 words. For some people they can't get it down to 3 words, right? Yeah. But when you have a lot, then you're all over the place. Yeah. And so people don't really know who you are. You don't really know who you are. So you wanna narrow that down. So I would first start with defining yourself in 3 simple words. The second thing that I would do is start thinking about your struggles and the struggles that have made you who you are. What struggles, what challenges have you gone through? Have you overcome, or that you're still overcoming? That makes those 3 words that you come up with. The third thing I would look at is, what are your values? Your values will also help to define who you are in those 3 words. And then the last thing that I would look at is what is your mission? What is your vision? Not just for your company. And this is where some people mix up between the personal brand and their company. Not just the mission and the vision for your company, which could intertwine depending on what your business is, but what is your personal mission? So I'll give you an example for me personally. So when I look at my personal brand, there was one time in 2015, I believe it was, I had just applied for the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses Program, which is a prestigious program of entrepreneurs around the country that Goldman Sachs puts on. And in that program, it's very strenuous. You have to be away from your business for a certain amount of time. And so you have to make sure that your employees are running the business because they're teaching you to work on the business and not in the business. Right after I applied for the program, I lost two of my largest clients.
Wow.
Right after I applied for the program. So I'm like, okay, I can't do this. I'm not going to do this, right? So I went through that struggle. I went through another struggle of realizing that an employee who was working for me was actually doing some underhanded stuff as well. There was a lot that was going on, right?
Wow.
But I still went through the program.
All right, we're not getting any drama.
No.
I got to prepare the people.
No drama, no names, no nothing. But
I mean, I'm here for it. I love a good.
Well, I mean, hey, look, it might make the ratings go up.
That's right. That's right. That's what I'm saying.
But I mean, on the real, there was it was a challenge. It was a challenging time, and I was debating on if I should go through the program or not. I ended up going through the program and realizing that it was for the best, and it made me better. After that, I wrote an article that was published in digital publications, mainly locally in New Orleans, that talked about all of that. That article got me, and I just wrote it just to talk about how I overcome the challenge as an entrepreneur. But that article got so much attention, and it got so much, but people, they felt that struggle, even if they were an entrepreneur, if they were just a regular person. Everyone has a challenge, and so they were able to connect with me on another level because I actually showed that these challenges that I was going through at that time. So you can't be afraid to look at the challenges that you have overcome, that you're going through, and to talk about that. We talked about Gary Vee in the previous episode. Gary Vee talks about his challenges. He talks about his struggles and what he has to, how he's overcome that. When we talk about people connecting with you, that's one of the things that allow people to connect with you and feel as though they know you a little bit more. And so now they're going to be more receptive to following you and hearing from you because you're real.
Right.
You're authentic.
Right.
If you just look like you're smiling all the time and everything is going great and you have nothing going on in your life, we're in the day and age where people know that that's not true. That's not the case. So that's one thing I would say with my personal brand. The other thing is to just make sure that you're connecting with people. And we'll talk about that a little bit later and some of the steps that you can do. But making sure that you're not just keeping it to yourself, but that you're connecting with people and you're putting it out in the forefront.
That's so interesting. I like, because like a lot of people would just say like, well, my personal brand is what makes me unique. But then you're kind of like, well, what does make me unique? And you're almost, I love how you're giving these little details of these are the questions you need to ask yourself to figure out, okay, I am, unique in this way because of my struggles, because of my values, because of these things that make me an individual. And then through that, people can kind of find trust in you because they see someone that has gone through the same things as them in a lot of ways, and then they start to build from there.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the last thing is to let people know what you stand for. Not just from a business standpoint, but from a personal standpoint as well. For my personal brand, I have a passion for helping to develop young people and mentoring, molding young people. That's not something that I came up with as part of my personal brand. It's who I am, right? And so people know that about me. So outside of marketing, outside of business and my company, BAMM, people also know that aspect about me. So it allows them to connect with me on another level as well.
It's so interesting. I've asked a lot of people in different facets. We have a kind of a program that we do for consulting with social media, podcasting. And through that, a lot of people, I'm asking them questions like, what are your passions? And it surprises me how much that catches people. What advice would you have to people that, to figure out what their passion, like what is a passion? How do you define that? For a lot of people, they struggle with that. It's like, I know it can be a lot of things, but how would you help people, define that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think your passion is your purpose. So the first thing that I would ask a person is, what is it that you enjoy doing that you wouldn't get paid? If you did not get paid, you would continue to do it. It's not about payment. Of course, anything that you do, there's some mornings that you're going to wake up and you're not going to want to do it because you're just tired and exhausted or whatever the case is. But for the most part, 99% of the time, what is it that you would enjoy getting up and doing every single day, even if you weren't getting paid to do it? That's your passion.
Yeah.
What is it that you want to continue to grow at? Continue to seek professional development. No one has to force you to do it. It doesn't feel like a job, even if it is your job. It doesn't feel like a job. That's your passion.
Yeah, and I guess like from there, once you kind of get all these elements, what are the next steps as far as like, okay, I've gotten all this down. How do I start defining and building this thing out? What's the steps from there?
Yeah. So first of all, the first step after defining that is to decide who your audience is and where they are. Just as you would with your business. Who is your audience? Where are they? Because you can, get all this together and you can put it out on Facebook, but if your audience is not on Facebook, then
who is on Facebook? That's what I
want. My great grandmother's still on Facebook.
All right, so if you're above the age of 70, build your personal 60, 70, whatever. I don't want to. I hope she's not watching this.
Right. Look, I just thought about it. My dad's on Facebook. He's probably
How
watching.
Old's a great aunt usually?
I'm not getting into
that. If you're above the age of 50, then maybe that's the right place for you. But
But you have to know where your audience is. Yeah. And that's the first thing that you want to do, because that's going to help to develop your content and what content you're putting out and how you're putting that content out. From there, there are different methods in which you can develop content. The main thing more than anything in marketing with your personal brand is providing value. Content marketing is a great way to do that. Providing value. So when you do that, you're not coming across as salesy. People don't like to be sold anything, right? And so the best thing that you can do is just be your authentic self and provide value. Right now, this podcast, this is a form of content marketing and providing value. We're providing value to people.
Yes.
Every episode that you do with another person, you're providing value to your audience.
Right. Hey, we're doing this for you guys. That's right.
Essentially, you are. You're doing it for them to help them. And so you want to make sure that you're providing that value for your audience. Now, depending on who your audience is and where you're putting this out, that's going to help to decide how you provide that value and in which context you provide that value to for them.
And I guess too, I'm curious, like obviously you mentioned a lot about platforms and stuff like that, but also does it like what's your take too on what kinds of things, what kinds of content you put out there? Does that also reflect how deep do you go on the rabbit hole of understanding your audience and the kinds of things you should create for that audience? What does that look like?
Yeah, so your audience probably likes more than likely they probably like what you like. Because they're relating to you. As far as what you should put out, for example, you may decide on Instagram or on TikTok to do video content where you're providing gems to people. Let's say you're an attorney. Through your personal brand, you may provide valuable information, giving people tips on what they should do if you're in a car accident, right? Different things like that. That's content. That's content marketing and ways in which you can provide information to people. But again, you want to make sure in doing that, that's not your personal brand alone. Your personal brand comes from building that trust with people through everything else that you're doing. So that's one form. You can do an ebook or do an online course. There are various things that you can do in order to get your content out. There's no cookie cutter answer to it because every person is different. Every personal brand is different. Every audience is different.
Yeah, and I guess do you start to, do you look at the stuff that you're putting out there and do you try and do market research on it in the sense of because this is true to who you are, right? I guess my question is, knowing that you're putting content out there, and let's say it doesn't get picked up or people aren't like seeing, like, you had this great big result with that article you wrote, but if other people are putting themselves out there and they don't see results, do they try and change who they are, or do they just try and put more of who they are out there? Like, what do they do there?
It depends, and you have to do your research just as you would do with your business, right? You have to, first of all, sometimes we live in a microwave generation where we want things to happen overnight. We see other people and we believe that they just grew overnight. You got to be consistent, and that's the key to anything, even with your personal branding. You have to be consistent messaging, consistent platforms, consistently putting the information out there. And then that's one. Two, if it still doesn't seem to be working, look and see what other people who are in your field, in your niche, what they're doing as well, and what's working for them. So you may need to change it up a little bit. Sometimes if you've built a base in a community of followers or fans, as we said in the last episode, ask them. Do a poll. Ask them what is it that you want? What is it that you're looking for from me? What would provide value for you? How can I help you? The whole thing is helping and assisting your audience, helping and assisting people. And giving them information where they can easily digest it, they can easily receive it. They are receiving it because they're receiving it the same method from other people as well, and they're not paying for it. They're genuinely getting that information from you.
And so, let's say you're getting all this together and you have started to, and you want to like see results from it. What do you suggest people do if let's say they want to go to the next step and they want to start marketing themselves, once they have their personal brand? Like, what are your suggestions? Do you say like they should just go all in, and then if they do, what way should they do it? Or should they kind of test things out first and then, see what works and then, add on to that? What are your kind of, suggestions of what avenues to approach?
Yeah. So again, depending on what platform you decide to go on, or what medium or method you decide to go with, I would test it out and see, one, if you're comfortable with it.
Yeah.
You have to be comfortable. The biggest thing to marketing and promoting your personal brand is authenticity. If it's not authentic, and we're in a day and age where people can read between the lines. They can see if you're authentic, if you're not. And so if it's not coming across as authentic, then people are going to read through that and it's not going to work. I don't care if the person next to you is doing it and they're successful at it and they're doing the same thing. So you have to do what you're comfortable with. And if you're comfortable with doing it, just continue to do it. Just continue to go through, continue to push at it. And if you're consistent with it and you're comfortable and you're genuine, they're going to come.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, and I know you kind of touched on this a little bit, but I think it would be good and helpful for those people out there. But, listing those avenues for these people that maybe aren't as comfortable being so front facing. What are the other, I know you mentioned like ebooks and stuff like that, but also like people that may not be wanting to be strictly in front of the camera. What are the other avenues that they can kind of push?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Sometimes especially with social media, we automatically think that it has to be, your cell phone and you're in front of the camera, and that's not for everyone. But you can write an ebook or a book. You can do an online course. You can do a podcast. Right. And right now, some people are listening to this podcast, but some people are watching it. But your podcast doesn't have to be video format. It can only be audio. So you can do a podcast as well. You may do blogs to help to, get your message out and to convey to people. Infographics. So it's whatever makes you comfortable. And then you can start small and then you can continue to build, because you may start with an audio podcast. And this is what I would suggest. If you're camera shy, start with an audio podcast.
Yeah.
And just put the camera up, but don't put it out there.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of people that I've met that have been camera shy for one reason or the other, I've also seen a lot of them do it over time, and they've overcome that. Like it is possible, and it may just be that you're not in practice, and I mean, I feel camera shy sometimes when I haven't like done anything in a long time. So that makes a lot of sense.
I was waiting for you to finish to say, believe it or not, I'm always in front of the camera, but I'm always camera shy.
Yeah.
And people's like, I don't believe that. But before we did this podcast, my nerves were
yeah.
jumping, right?
Yeah.
But I've done it so much, I've learned to control it.
Oh, for sure.
I've learned how to just push through and get through. And so, as you said, the more you do it, and that's with anything, the easier it becomes, the better you'll get at it. So, I would suggest whatever platform you're doing that you're not comfortable with, do another platform. But while you're doing that other method, continue to work on what your goal is, what you want to. So if you want to eventually be on camera, just put the camera up and study it yourself, and then show it to your friends.
Yeah.
And then one day, just put it up, because I guarantee you, we overthink it more than we need to.
I mean, this all ties together, and I think this is a great way to end it, which is like you're talking about earlier, how consistency is so important. We just talked about how, the more you do that something, you're going to be better and better at it. We all feel nervous in front of a camera, but the more you do it, the more you learn it, the more you're comfortable. But in your opinion and in your experience, what to you are some of the key strategies or tips that you would give to everyone about being consistent, how to keep consistency alive in your personal brand journey?
The first thing is, and we said this in the last episode, where's my camera again? Just do it. Right? In the words of Nike, just do it. Just get started and just keep doing it. Just keep going more and more and more. So I've written a book on personal branding. Shameless plug. It's called Brand on Fire. Right? And you can go to my website. You can order it on Amazon to learn more about personal branding. But that's my third book. Wow. The first book that I wrote was The Kingdom Driven CEO. And now I go back and I look at that book. I'm like, I got to redo it because it's horrible. Right? But I continue to do it. That's the only reason why I can go back and look at this first book and say, you know what? And I'm saying horrible because I'm hard on myself, but it's not as great as I want it to be. Yeah. You're going to get better over time the more you do it, but you just have to be consistent. And that's with anything. So my advice is to, one, just do it and just keep doing it. The other thing is, if you have an opportunity, find someone or something that will hold you accountable to doing it. One of the challenges that a lot of people face in marketing, even whether that be through their business or even through their personal branding, they start and then they're not consistent. They don't keep going. So you don't realize that you may build an audience of one follower. And it took you a week to get that one follower, and then the next week maybe you got two. Maybe you realized it, maybe you didn't. But now when you stop because you didn't get 2,000 or 200 in that second week, you've disappointed those two people. Yeah. Right? And who knows, those two people might have brought on 5 people the following week. So you just have to just keep going no matter what, just as you would with anything. I've expanded my business to Atlanta. And recently, as I shared, my mom recently passed away. So I had to come back to New Orleans just to make sure things were good. And of course, in New Orleans, I gained 20 pounds in like a matter.
Wow. Hey, what's going on in Atlanta then? That's what I'm wondering.
They don't have good food like we have in New Orleans, right? And so I had to get back on the treadmill. And I told you I worked out this morning, right? And made sure I got my workout in. And because I had to come and do this podcast, I only had 20 minutes. I normally do an hour. I only had 20 minutes, but I at least did it because what I realized is I had to continue to be consistent in doing it. Otherwise, I've lost those 20 pounds back. I've lost those 20 pounds. I don't want to say back because back means it's coming back.
Yeah,
I rebuke that
I was about to say,
in the name of Jesus. No,
don't toy with my emotions like that. It's like, does he have it? Does he not? I don't know.
I don't. I can
Which
tell
is
you
actually
that.
kind of funny because you just say like I gained 20 pounds. I'm like, is this the 20 pounds or is the 20 pounds gone or what's happening with those 20 pounds? That's what I want to know.
It's gone.
Where's those 20 pounds?
It's gone, but it's gone because I was consistent.
That's right.
I was consistent in working out and making sure I do it even when I didn't want to do it.
Right.
And so I say that and bring that up to say it's the same with anything. We can relate it when we talk about working out, right? Yeah. We can relate it to other stuff. Also related to your personal branding. Also related to getting your message out to people. And if you're genuine with it, right, as we talked about, and you're genuine in what you're putting out, it shouldn't be a challenge to do it. It should just be a challenge to be consistent. Yeah. If it's a challenge for you to tell the story, then you're probably not being authentic. You're probably not being genuine, and you're probably making something up. And again, that's not going to work because people will be able to read straight through that.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that comes to my mind is that in most cases, people care about the you that is here today. And, most cases, I mean, I know, Kevin Hart had some trouble with that in the past, but it's like, for all of us, people are looking at you now. And whatever you did in the past, like those minor things that you thought of in the past, like I think we're also obsessed with creating things and feeling like they have to be so perfect for now. When it's like you're saying, you now have this opportunity where you have this book that you can now critique and make better.
Correct.
That other people don't have that opportunity.
Exactly.
So they just got to get out there and do it. Because if they do it, then they can improve it.
Bars.
Kind
of. That was rhyme. If they do it, you can improve it.
I got a little song. I'm like, I'm a half Ryan King, that's what they call me. Anyway, well, Brandon, once again, fantastic coming in here. I mean, I think so many great things. I think people just really don't value it enough, personal brands. So it's great to have you come in and talk about that. But if people want help with that and they need someone like you to come in and kind of give them guidance on how they can build their personal brand for themselves and for their business, for the benefit of their business, where can they find you online?
So they can find me online, all social media platforms. Facebook, I'm still on Facebook. Instagram.
Got to talk to those
Twitter,
great aunts.
TikTok, of course. But I'm on all platforms at Brandon Armant, BrandonArmant. And you can also go to my website. My website is brandonarmant.life.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thanks again, man. This has been a fantastic episode, too. We tied it in a bow. If you didn't listen to the first one, you should, because that's going to tell you why you should be doing all this. So check it out, and we'll see you all in the next one. Thanks for tuning into the show. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. This episode of Make Marketing Make Sense is brought to you by Comfystone. If your business needs organic social media video content, video ads, or video podcasting, hit up Comfystone at comfystone.com and follow Comfystone on Instagram and TikTok. Until next time, this is Make Marketing Make Sense.